Fans are stunned by what transpired on the last day of filming. It has been reported that the Love and Hip Hop set was totally destroyed following the most violent altercation in the franchise's history. It all began with a heated argument between Kirk Frost and the men that swiftly got out of hand. Young Jack was seen attempting to calm everyone down, but even he was powerless to stop what was happening. Furniture was flipped, cameras were knocked over, and the production crew had to shut everything down when Rashida clapped back accusations that no one saw coming. Down right away, according to accounts, Mama Scott was there yelling at the actors to stop, but it was too late. What was meant to be a joyous rap descended into complete mayhem, complete with broken equipment. Bruised egos and rumors of fans are now clamoring for the truth about why everything went so wrong. What secrets were revealed that drove the actors to their breaking points, and why the network is remaining so silent. One thing is certain, though, this is just the start of the most stunning. The incident involving Love and Hip Hop began innocently enough. The last day of filming for Love and Hip Hop Atlanta was meant to be a celebration as the group had completed another season. The drama had peaked, and everyone was anticipating closing down and taking a vacation, but none was ready for what would happen that day. It started with a friendly exchange between Kirk Frost and Mind, two men whose rivalry had been simmering for months. The tension between them was meant to be resolved in front of the cameras for a big, devastating finale, but nobody anticipated how intense the dispute would go. It began with a simple argument about a men's remark regarding Kirk's parenting style, and it quickly got out of hand. Who had never been one to back down, responded by saying that he wasn't in a position to judge Men DC's past mistakes. That's when things took a turn for the worse. Men DC, already tense from the season's pressure, snapped, his face turning red with rage, and he lunged toward Perk, pushing him with all of his might. The action was captured on tape by his might, but what happened next was even more shocking. After weeks of trying to keep the peace, Wendy Smith Mendez's wife moved in to stop her husband, but her attempts were confrontational as she yelled that the situation was getting out of control. But Mendez wasn't listening to Mentz. "This isn't the time, babe, stop it." Rashida, the voice of reason, tried to also step in, but she just made matters worse by yelling at Kirk. "Don't let him do this. Show some self-control." Kirk became furious and yelled back at her, saying, "Don't tell me what to do." The ensuing confusion was a haze of accusations and insults, with Kirk and Yandy yelling at one another with their faces inches apart, while Rashida and Yandy attempted to break them up. But it was obvious that this was now more than just a little argument. It was personal. The crew was clearly shaken and unsure of how to handle the intensity of the confrontation when a loud crash echoed through the set. The scene that followed was even more shocking than the argument, during which Kirk, in a fit of rage, shoved a men's too was visible in red, and he pushed over a piece of the set, sending a mirror flying across the room. The entire set looked like a war zone, and supporters on the sidelines were shocked because no one had ever seen Love and Hip. Before, the drama had always been intense, but this was something completely different. Young Jock, who had been trying to keep a low profile throughout the season, suddenly stepped in and approached Kirk. And Mendy ceased to try to calm them down by placing a hand on each of their shoulders. But the situation had gotten too heated. He shouted, "This is between me and Kirk," and the DCs shoved him away, urging him to keep out of it. The crew was at a loss for what to do, and the producers were frantically trying to figure out how to halt the chaos. But it was obvious that this was no longer about the show. It was real raw. Mona Scott, the franchise's creator, was apparently on set during all of this mayhem. According to eyewitnesses, she was seen frantically telling the actors and crew to calm down since this wasn't what we had planned. The set was ruined, the cast was split, And what should have been a moment of closure had devolved into a full-scale meltdown as the debate reached its climax. Security intervened, but even they were unable to contain the scene men DCs. Was escorted off the set, still ranting and furious, while Kirk Frost stood in the center of the confusion, looking just as angry as Yandandy, who was clearly shocked and attempting to comprehend what had just transpired. The aftermath was equally as dramatic as the fight itself, with fans taking to social media to express their shock and ask, "Did you guys see that fight on Love and Hip?" Rashida, on the other hand, was seen storming off while muttering to herself that this was supposed to be a celebration rather than a disaster. One person tweeted, "This is a whole new level," while another added, "I thought the drama was scripted, but this is real, they really went at it." Rumors began to circulate. Some cast members were reportedly considering leaving the show permanently after this altercation, according to sources close to the production. One cast member reportedly stated in a private conversation. The network, meanwhile, scrambled to manage the fallout, some reports claimed. That they made an effort to conceal the extent of the damage, but the truth was already out, and fans began posting behind-the-scenes videos of the devastation online. The reunion special, which was scheduled to air shortly after the season finale, was postponed because the producers were desperate to save what little remained of the season, so they started thinking about how they would deal with the aftermath in subsequent episodes. Would they confront the altercation directly, or would they ignore it? As for the actors, Yandandy, Kirk, Rashida, and the others from DC were far from over. We're left to pick up the pieces of their broken relationships, both on and off camera. According to some sources, Men VC and Kirk were at such high levels of tension that they might never be able to share a scene together again. Others said Yandy was thinking about leaving the show to safeguard her family's reputation, but that it was no longer worth it. Was reported to have stated that the cast members weren't the only ones affected, and that the fans were split. While some remained devoted to the show, claiming that the drama was what made it so captivating, others were appalled by what had transpired and demanded that the network immediately cancel Love and Hip Hop because it wasn't entertaining. As the last day of filming drew to a close, everyone was wondering what would happen next. Would this disastrous incident spell the end of hip hop and love, or would it merely drive the show into further darker territory? One fan even remarked, "It's just exploitation." There was no doubt that the drama was far from done, and as the cameras rolled and the set fell silent, the actors, crew, and fans waited for the next stunning turn of events. Tension boiled between the cast members, the crew, and the fans. Explosive eruption that had come to be associated with hip-hop and love realized that this was different. What had begun as a straightforward argument had quickly gotten out of hand and turned into the most heated conflict in the history of the show. This time, it wasn't just about on-screen drama. After his heated confrontation with Mentz, Kirk Frost, who had been at the center of the dispute from the beginning, made it clear that he wasn't backing down. He was heard saying, "I'm not afraid of anyone, and I'm sure not afraid of men." Those close to Kirk observed that his behavior had become more unpredictable in recent months. He wasn't just angry. He was lashing out in an attempt to assert dominance in a world that felt increasingly out of his control. His voice rose with frustration, and his arrogance was evident, which only served to exacerbate the situation. Rasha, his wife, was caught in the middle. She had always been the source of peace in their marriage, but this time was different because Kirk and Mindy's tension was starting to destroy her family. She had seen the chaos firsthand and struggled to provide for her husband, while also she told a close friend, her voice full of emotion, "I just don't know how to fix this anymore," saying, "I never wanted it to get this bad, but every day it seems like things are falling apart." But the cracks in Rashida's marriage were becoming more visible by the day the once solid bond behind closed doors. There were indications of stress between her and Kirk. Rashida had started to wonder if it was worth it to be married. She had always been the sensible one in their relationship, but even she understood that some challenges were too great to face, and he told a crew worker during a break. "I came in here to show my family's journey, but all we've gotten is drama." In contrast, she started to feel more and more alone due to the pandemonium on set, and males were less likely to forgive or forget. He became enraged and said, "This isn't real, and I can't be part of it anymore." Was aimed not only at Kirk, but also at the entire production at the system that had permitted things to get so out of hand. "This isn't what we signed up for." Yandandy's wife was caught in a tub of war. She had always stood by Mence, no matter what, but the strain of the situation was beginning to get to her. Yandy told a trusted friend that she was done and ready to leave everything. I don't blame him. This isn't the kind of atmosphere we want for our children. But Yandy couldn't deny the fact that she had created a hip-hop and love-based empire. And leaving it behind wasn't an easy choice. The show that had allowed her to share her story was now the thing that threatened to destroy her family. She had to decide whether to support her husband and leave everything she had worked so hard for, or to continue on the show and risk losing her marriage while doing so. "I'm not sure how we got here," Yandandy remarked, her eyes welling up with tears. "I thought we were creating something lovely, but now I'm not sure if we'll survive this at all," as the producers frantically tried to contain the arguments. One producer was heard stating, "We can't let this break the cast apart, not with the finale coming up. We must control the situation." As it became evident that the fallout was getting out of hand, and that the meticulously constructed picture of love and hip-hop was starting to fall apart. Need them to be family, not rivals. But in spite of efforts to bridge the gap, the cast conflicts were only becoming worse. Yeonjak, who was generally jovial and had a positive outlook on life, was clearly disturbed by the increasing hostility on set. "We're supposed to be a team, a family, but it's like everyone's out for themselves now," he said in frustration to what I had signed up for. "I just want to get through this without all the fighting." Jock had always been the peacemaker on the show, but even he had his limits as tensions mounted, he said. Fans who had previously rejoiced in the highs and lows of their favorite stars were now expressing shock and disappointment as social media erupted with reactions, with many urging that the show be removed from the drama by remaining silent and avoiding the heated exchanges that had become routine. One fan tweeted, "I can't believe the drama these people are creating. This is not what we signed up for." Others were as shocked by the cancellation, saying, "This is ridiculous." Another viewer wrote, "This isn't reality anymore. It's just a bunch of people pretending to be something they're not." The creators in a show that had strayed so far from its basic premise that they had entirely lost their way. In a last-ditch attempt to save the show, a mediator was brought in to try and settle the conflicts amongst the cast members. The mediator's job was to lead a group meeting where everyone could voice their complaints and hopefully find some common ground. But as soon as the meeting started, it swiftly turned into Kirk abruptly interrupted the mediator, saying, "We're not here to fix things. We're here to set the record straight." It's obvious that the wounds were far too deep to be healed with a simple conversation. His attitude of defiance as the meeting went on, more cast members vented their anger in a flood of emotions, saying things like, "I don't care about the show anymore," which only served to stoke the fire and escalate the confrontation. One cast member remarked, "At this point, we're all being played, and it's just a paycheck." The other cast members, who had previously been bound together by their common experiences, were now openly discussing the toll the program had taken on their lives. At this point, the producers knew they were dealing with a catastrophe. "It was supposed to be our ticket to something better," another cast member said. "But all we've gotten is drama, and we're all paying the price." "We can't continue like this," as one producer acknowledged, and the cultural phenomenon was now on the verge of collapsing because the cast rifts were too deep, and it was becoming clear that some members might not return for another season. The cast was forced to confront the fact that their futures were unknown. Would they be able to resolve their problems and carry on with the love and hip-hop narrative? Or was this the end of an era? The show's finale is just days away. As the days went by, the emotional toll on the cast members became unavoidable. What had started as a dramatic on-set dispute had now grown into a full-blown personal crisis impacting everyone, and the show and the relationships that had been so essential to its success were in jeopardy. Nevertheless, the consequences of the violent altercations were extensive, and nobody, not even the producers, could have predicted what would happen next. Kirk Frost, the controversial lightning rod, ended up in the middle of the mayhem. As tensions between the two men escalated, he repeatedly proclaimed, "I'm not backing down from anyone, especially not men's," which resonated with many. However, as the days passed, it became clear that Kirk's boastfulness was deep down. He knew that he had gone too far, and the fallout was still ongoing. Behind the scenes, Rashida was fighting to keep her composure. Her mother and wife had always been the ones to maintain harmony, but even they were unable to ignore the stress this conflict had placed on her family. Rashida confided to a close friend, "Kirk is pushing everyone away, and I can't keep pretending like everything is okay." As she paced back and forth in her dressing room, her voice trembled, revealing the vulnerability that lay beneath her normally composed exterior as she dealt with the fallout from her marriage. The couple had always been a fan favorite, and their love story was one of the show's more poignant storylines. But now that things had gotten out of hand, Menth and Yandy, who had always been composed, were having their own private reckoning. "I didn't sign up for this, Mems, but after a particularly stressful day of filming, I came here to show the world our journey and avoid being caught in this situation." And Collected was clearly upset. His frustration had been building for months, and it seemed like the time had finally come for him to speak out. He vented to Yandindi one night. "It's all too much." Yandindi, who had always been the encouraging spouse, tried to reassure him, saying softly, "We've been through worse, babe. We'll get through this like we always do." However, even Yandandi, who had witnessed men, says, "I can't keep pretending like everything is fine." She said to a close friend, "Because men see that he's done with this, and I don't blame him." She was starting to doubt their future on the show during his darkest moments. Over the years, the cameras had recorded innumerable instances of unfiltered emotion, but nothing could have prepared the audience for what was about to happen with each passing instant. This isn't the life we envisioned for our family. What started out as a straightforward reality program evolved into a high-stakes game where people's reputations, relationships, and futures were on the line as the dispute grew more intense, and no one, not even the show's producers, could keep the drama contained. The amount of hostility that had taken over the set astounded Yamjaku, who was known for his humor and laid-back demeanor. "I never thought it would come to this," he said in a voice tinged with amazement. "We're all meant to be a family, but Jock had always been the group's glue." But even he realized that things had gotten out of hand for the producers, who took great satisfaction in producing the drama that viewers wanted. "It feels like everyone is turning against one another. We're suddenly having trouble regaining control. We can't keep pushing these people to their breaking point," one producer told a group of coworkers. "We need to figure out a way to mend the rifts or this show is going to collapse." The producers were forced to decide whether the show could go on, or if it was too late to undo the harm that had been done in spite of the attempts to mediate the conflict. The drama was what had made love and hip-hop so popular, but the personal toll it was taking on the cast was undeniable. The cast members, who had formerly been bound together by their common experiences, were now split by a deep-seated hostility that no one appeared to be able to overcome as the situation worsened. This isn't fun anymore. We're all just going through the motions, but no one really cares about each other anymore. One cast member admitted to a crew member during a break. The once close-knit group had been broken, and the fissures were only getting wider with every day as tensions increased. And Kirk's behavior became at one point, Kirk said, his cheeks flushed with rage, "I'm not going to let anyone tell me what to do." His disobedience of men had only fueled the conflict's flames, and it was starting to show in his behavior. The cast and crew were uneasy as his remarks reverberated across the set, not even Mensa's. It was evident that Kirk wasn't just upset. He was also unraveling, and nobody knew how to stop it. Meanwhile, Rashida had to make an uncomfortable choice. "I don't know what's going to happen next," she whispered gently, "but I can't keep living like this. I need peace." The decision was weighing heavily on her, and she wasn't sure if she should stay with her husband or go. She had always been Mendesi's pillar of support, but even she was starting to wonder how much further they could go downhill. Her mental agony was apparent, and it felt like no one could provide her with the reassurance she much needed. Sitting by herself in her dressing room, she told herself, "This path, I don't know what's worse." The drama of the show and the effect it was having on our family were the two things that were weighing her down, and it was obvious that any decision she took would have a lasting impact on her marriage, career, and future. The cast members weren't the only ones experiencing stress. The show's longtime supporters were starting to voice their worries on social media, with viewers shocked by the growing drama saying things like, "This is too many." Fans expressed their dissatisfaction with the show's changes throughout the years, saying things like, "This isn't the love and hip-hop I used to watch. It's just a mess now." And they're tearing each other apart for a paycheck, and it's sad to watch, in a tweet. The producers frantically tried to figure out how to salvage the situation as the fun got closer. Would they be able to mend the broken relationships between the cast members? Or was this the end of the line for love? And hip-hop, there was a sense of unpredictability, and nobody knew what the future of the show or its stars held. As the actors got ready for the last day of filming, the tension was evident, and it was unclear if the actors would be able to unite one last time to survive the finale, or if as the last day of filming drew near, the tension on set reached an all-time high. And the once close-knit group of love and hip-hop was left wondering if they would reconcile or if their relationship problems would be too severe to overcome the show's fate in the first place. The cast was now a broken family, with each member battling their own feelings and competing allegiances. The fallout from the heated arguments had affected everyone, and it was becoming more and more obvious that the drama that took place on set would leave wounds that extended well beyond the cameras. Kirk Frost, who appeared to be on the verge of a breakdown, his normally calm manner had been replaced by a volatile air, and with every hour that went by, his outbursts became more frequent, his temper shorter, and his defiance of the producers and cast members more intense. During one of his numerous heated exchanges with crew members, Kirk had mumbled, "This whole situation is a joke. They want to paint me as the villain, but I'm just speaking the truth." Although he was confident, his remarks were filled with thou. He had been one of the most unpredictable characters on the show. Kirk was clearly struggling, and his internal battle had reached a boiling point. Despite his bravado, the cracks in his armor were widening, and it was impossible to predict how far he would go before completely breaking down. The final day of filming hung over Rashida like an ominous cloud, and she said, "I don't know if I can do this anymore." as it seemed like his own emotions were now erupting out of control, and she had reached her own breaking point due to the emotional strain of the ongoing drama. It's tearing me apart to watch Kirk act like this. I thought we were stronger than this, she admitted to Yandy one evening, her voice barely audible above a whisper. Yandendi, the listener, agreed, recognizing that I understand, Brashida, but you've always been the strong one. You've got this. But even Yandendi wasn't sure how much longer Rashida could hold it all together. It was evident that the stress of being caught in the middle of her husband's collapse and juggling the show's drama was wearing on her that she struggled to balance her allegiance to Kirk with her own health, while Menik, who had been largely silent during the drama's peak, was engulfed in an emotional tornado. His annoyance with the circumstances had been building for some time, but as the last day of, I can't keep pretending like everything's fine, he told Yandy in a rare moment of vulnerability as the shooting approached. This is too much. We didn't come here for this. I came here to focus on my family and my future, not to be dragged into this situation. I hear you, baby, but let's just get through the final, and then, said Yandendi, who had always stood for male VCs, through thick and bad. As the cast prepared for what was supposed to happen, it became evident that their relationship with the show, and possibly with each other, might never be the same again. We'll work things out, but even Yandendi knew that the damage had already been done. Their time on the show had been full of drama. The last day was supposed to be a joyous occasion, but the atmosphere on set was anything but. The producers, who had put in countless hours to keep the drama going all season, now had a much bigger task: how to deal with a situation that had gotten out of hand. This is bigger than just reality TV. This is real-life fallout, and we can't predict how it's going to play out. We've never seen anything like this before, one producer whispered to another, her voice tinged with dread. The previously carefully regulated, nobody knew if the last day of filming would end in a dramatic resolution, or if it would be the start of even bigger fallout, because the set had become a pressure cooker, with every interaction loaded with tension. The crew, accustomed to the constant ebb and flow of reality show drama, were now walking on eggshells. As they got ready for the last shoot, Jock, who is always the joker and peacemaker, tried to lighten the mood, but even his trademark sense of humor was unable to break through the obvious tension. "Man, this is getting out of hand," he said to a fellow cast member. "I don't know what's going to happen, but I hope we make it." His humorous attempt to defuse the situation only served to emphasize the profound division that had developed among the actors as the cameras rolled and they assembled. Through this without another fight, my heart can't take much more of this. The producers held their breath for a seamless conclusion to the season's final scene, but they were unprepared for the uproar that followed when Kirk, who had been uncharacteristically silent throughout the day, suddenly snapped. His voice reverberated over the set as he said, "I'm done pretending. This is all a game, and I'm not playing anymore." With rage, but beneath it all was an obvious sense of hurt. Kirk had struggled for years to deal with the demands of celebrity, but it appeared that the weight of it had finally broken him. Rashida, who was clearly startled by his outburst, attempted to step in, but Kirk stopped this. "Please don't do this now. Let's just not do it," she begged, her voice faltering with emotion. "Get this done and head home." However, Kirk had had enough and turned to face the crew, saying, "You don't expect me to be anyone's puppet anymore. But if you want drama, I'll deliver it to you." The cameras were rolling, recording every minute as the room went silent, the tension so intense that a knife might pierce it, but the brokenness in Kirk's eyes, which had been so assured only days earlier, was what they failed to portray. Appeared to be a shadow of his former self now because of the strain of the performance, the arguments with Mendes, and his marriage's disintegration was too much for him to bear. And Means, who had been Kirkman, I stepped forward while observing this spectacle from a distance. Understand, he replied in a strangely composed tone, but this isn't how you should manage it. You don't have to handle this alone because we're all handling our own issues. But Kirkin, I'm done with all of you. He spat in a final act of defiance. I don't need this show, and I don't need any of you, he said, walking off stage. Additionally, with that there was pandemonium on the last day of filming, so the producers abruptly stopped the cameras, not knowing how to save the circumstance where the cast, who had previously been a family bound by their common experiences, was now, as the actors departed the set, the future of hip-hop and love appeared more hazy than ever. The show that had made them famous was now a faraway memory, and their faces were a mixture of sadness, rage, and tiredness. Nobody knew what the future held, but one thing was certain: the relationships that had been based on it were in ruins. That's love and hip-hop's most chaotic moment, and it's safe to say that the cast would never be the same again. Despite the shooting day, there were violent altercations, treacherous betrayals, and an emotional roller coaster that left everyone was taken aback and slid. And the show's future is now unclear. Everyone is wondering, is this the end? Where do these stars go from here? Root for Kirk, Rashida Mentz, and the other crew members. Or are there more drama on the horizon? And we'd want to know what you think about it. Was Kirk correct to leave the set on the last day of filming? Or should he have handled things differently? What do you think Mindy's and Yandy can endure this turmoil? Or is their relationship in ruins? Let's find out. Please share your opinions in the comments section below. And if you believe this to be among the best terrible events in hip-hop and love history, so that BVS star IB can remain current on all the most recent rumors and behind-the-scenes intrigue, as we have more startling news to share with you. Keep an eye out for what comes next in this emotional roller coaster. We'll see you in the next.